You're sitting across from someone. The conversation stops. Nobody says anything. 5 seconds pass. Your palms get warm. Your eyes dart to your phone. You would rather do almost anything than sit in that silence. But the real answer for why is far stranger than awkwardness. It's not about manners. It's about survival. Your brain treats silence as a problem to be solved, not a pause, a problem. Think about the last time a conversation went quiet. What did you do? You probably filled it. A joke, a question, a comment about the weather. Anything to make the quiet go away. You didn't choose to do that. Your brain did it for you. Here's what's actually happening underneath. Silence removes information. Your brain is a prediction machine, constantly guessing what happens next based on what it hears and sees. Take away the sound of another person's voice, and the guessing stops working. There's no data to predict from, and a brain with no data starts to imagine the worst. Is the other person angry? Bored? Judging you? Your mind doesn't know, so it fills the gap with anxiety. Neuroscientists call this uncertainty aversion. It's not that silence itself is bad. It's that not knowing is bad, and silence is the loudest kind of not knowing. Researcher Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia ran a study that shows exactly how far people will go to avoid this feeling. He placed people alone in a room with nothing to do but sit with their own thoughts. No phone, no music, no talking, just quiet. Then he gave them a button that delivered a mild electric shock. Most people had already said, before the study began, that they would pay money to avoid being shocked. But when left alone in silence for just 15 minutes, a large number of them shocked themselves anyway. Just to have something happen. Just to break the quiet. Let that sit for a second. People chose pain over stillness. That's how uncomfortable an empty moment can feel to a brain wired for constant input. But it's not only about being alone. Silence between two people carries its own particular sting, and that sting has a name. Psychologist Namsh Kudenberg, who studies conversation at the University of Groningen, found that even a few seconds of silence during a conversation can make people feel less connected to each other. Not because the silence itself is rude, because your brain reads it as a signal that something is wrong with the flow between you and the other person. Humans evolved in small groups where being in sync with others meant safety. A shared rhythm of talking and listening was proof you belonged. When that rhythm breaks, even for 4 seconds, an old alarm goes off. Something is off. Fix it. So you talk. Not because you have something important to say, because the silence itself feels like a threat to the bond. Here's where it gets stranger. This discomfort isn't the same for everyone, and it isn't fixed. It can be trained. Matthias Mell, a psychologist at the University of Arizona who studies everyday conversation using recording devices people wear throughout their day, has found that people who report higher well-being tend to have deeper conversations, not necessarily louder or more constant ones. Some of the most satisfying conversations recorded in his research include pauses. Real pauses. Silence that isn't filled just because it can be, which raises a question. If silence makes us this uneasy, why do some relationships handle it just fine? The answer comes back to certainty. When you know someone well, silence stops being a gap in information. You already know what they're thinking, roughly. You trust the relationship enough that a quiet moment doesn't read as danger. It just reads as comfortable. That's why silence with a stranger on a train feels unbearable. But silence with someone you've known for 20 years can feel like peace. The discomfort was never really about the sound. It was about trust. Now, think about children for a moment, because this shows up early and clearly. Watch a group of kids who don't know each other yet. Put them in a room and take away the toys, the games, the noise. Watch how quickly one of them starts talking, filling the space, cracking a joke, doing anything to avoid a stretch of silence between strangers. That's not a personality quirk. That's the same ancient alarm, just less practiced at staying calm. As children grow older, some learn to sit inside a quiet moment without panicking. Usually the ones who've had enough safe silence model for them. A parent who doesn't rush to fill every pause. A caregiver who lets a thought finish forming before jumping in. Silence tolerance, it turns out, is something you learn, not something you're simply born with. And this matters far beyond conversations at dinner. Silence shows up everywhere modern life tries to erase it. Notice how rarely you experience true quiet anymore. Music while you cook, a podcast while you drive, a video playing in the background while you fold laundry. Silence has become something to be filled by default, almost automatically, long before you've consciously decided you want noise. Ask yourself, when was the last time you sat somewhere, doing nothing, hearing nothing, on purpose? For most people, the honest answer is a very long time ago. Maybe never as an adult. This isn't an accident of modern life. It's the same ancient discomfort, just given infinite new tools to avoid it. Where your ancestors might have hummed or talked to break an uneasy quiet, you now have an entire pocket-sized device built to make sure silence never lasts more than a few seconds. But here's the twist science keeps circling back to. The very thing your brain treats as a threat might be exactly what it needs most. Silence isn't empty. It's when your brain does some of its most important work. It's when memories consolidate, when creative connections form, when the constant stream of external input finally stops long enough for internal processing to catch up. Some of the researchers studying this describe silence not as the absence of activity, but as a different kind of activity, a quieter, slower, deeper kind. Your discomfort with silence, then, isn't a flaw to fix by avoiding it. It's a signal that you're out of practice. So the next time a conversation goes quiet, notice what your body wants to do. Notice the urge to fill it immediately with words, with a joke, with your phone. And then, just once, try waiting instead. Let the silence stretch a few seconds longer than feels natural. Not because it's polite, because it's information. Because underneath the discomfort is an old, outdated alarm system mistaking quiet for danger. You're not broken for feeling uneasy in silence. You're running code that helped your ancestors stay safe in a world that punished being out of sync with the group. But you don't live in that world anymore. Tonight, when the conversation pauses or the room goes quiet, or you're alone with nothing playing in the background, you'll feel that same old pull to fill the space. This time, you'll know exactly why. And maybe, just for a moment, you'll let the silence stay.